For animals, and so we wanted to bring you here today to talk about some of the stuff that we're doing and some of the stuff that might be in the future. So with that, Mayor Jesse Hardman.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for that really lovely introduction. And Michael is one of those people that makes such an amazing difference in the East Bay, and really honored to have your support. And thank you for inviting me to come speak today. Talk about some of the work that we're doing in the city of Berkeley. And as we all know, Berkeley has historically been at the forefront for the humane treatment of animals. And this goes back many decades, but was really led by Donna Spring, who was on the city council from 1992 to 2008 and represented District 4, downtown Berkeley. I was a close friend and colleague of Donna Spring, and she was the fiercest, most effective champion for the rights of animals and for Berkeley really being at the forefront of animal welfare. And when she asked me to run to succeed her on the Berkeley City Council, part of what she asked me to do was to continue her work on fighting for animal welfare. And so when I came into office in 2008, elected to fill her seat on the Berkeley City Council, I took that responsibility very seriously. And a couple of issues that we took on right out the gate. This was around the time that there was advocacy to ban the sale of foie gras due to the inhumane treatment of geese, force-feeding geese to create the product. And Berkeley took a very strong stand before the statewide ban was put in effect to urge our restaurants to not sell this product. And we got some pushback. In fact, I was banned from one restaurant in the city of Berkeley because of my advocacy on that issue, but it's the right thing to do. And learning about the really horrible treatment of geese in the process of creating this food product really made it clear that we were on the right side. We were about making sure that we were treating animals justly and humanely and fairly. After that, due to statewide legislation that was passed in Sacramento to prohibit cities from banning the also inhumane practice of declawing, Berkeley joined other cities in the state of California to pass legislation, which I authored, to make us one of 8 cities to ban this cruel procedure before the state preempted cities from banning it. And I remember working very closely with animal rights organizations, PETA and the PAW Project and many other organizations in bringing this forward. And once again, in the process of learning about this issue, understanding there are kind of both sides of the issue. We heard from veterinarians in Berkeley that there may be some circumstances where it's okay to allow declawing, but from my perspective, the really painful impact, long-term impact it had on animals, cats and dogs particularly, being a cat and dog owner myself, persuaded me that this was the right step to take. And so we did pass sort of urgent legislation in 2009 before the state said, I think it was December 31st, 2009, that cities can no longer pass those prohibitions. So we got our legislation right before the deadline, and it is illegal for any veterinarian to declaw a pet in the city of Berkeley as a result of that. And I wanted to bring my cat to the city council. How could you do this to this really, who was a kitten at the time, was a 3-month-old kitten that I had rescued from the Berkeley shelter, the old Berkeley shelter, where we built the new Berkeley shelter. And his name is Che. And I have I guess 3 years now, 3-year-old Yorkie named Dell. So having a cat and a dog in the same house was interesting dynamics, but
prepared you for the city council.
Prepared me for the city council, but it's so important to me personally to ground me when I come home after a long and difficult meeting, to have two people that I love, and that I care for, and that can bring me love and affection. Is so important. So when we're discussing the declaw policy, how can we let a kitten, how can we let a cat, how can we let a dog go through the very painful practice of declawing for purely cosmetic reasons? It's not acceptable. We have to put the needs and the welfare of animals above, what we may think is cosmetically appropriate. So that was something we passed in 2009. Around that time, actually in 2002, the voters of Berkeley passed a bond measure to fund the construction of a new municipal animal shelter. And so for many years, we were working on trying to find a location for the animal shelter, and we finally found a location right on Boulevard Drive in Aquatic Park. And I was on the council when we were working to secure the financing, as well as to move ahead with the construction of the municipal animal shelter. And we have a model municipal shelter, which is actually models sustainability practices in the design of the shelter itself. And we have one of the lowest, correct me if I'm wrong, Mara, one of the lowest kill rates of any shelter in the Bay Area, probably, and really are really working very, very hard to try to rescue and to find homes for as many animals as possible. There's obviously more work that we can do. I think critical to that is either implementation on the statewide level or on the local level, the idea that pet stores should no longer sell animals unless they're rescued animals. It would go a long way to help having us find as many homes as possible for animals that are in our shelters. And my hope is the governor will sign that bill. I know you're all aware of it. We should all write to the governor and urge him to support that legislation. Berkeley City Council endorsed that legislation several months ago. And Councilor Ben Bartlett, who's on my city council, was one of the people that supported that. And we hope that that is a statewide policy. But if it's not a statewide policy, we're interested in making it a local Berkeley policy. Another issue that I had heard a lot about, and as a renter myself, I had experienced, is the difficulty of being able to find apartments where owners will allow pets. And in our really insane housing market where rents are so expensive and there's such a scarce supply, this could really be a make or break issue for some renters who have dogs or cats or other pets. If an owner is very restrictive on allowing pets. Fortunate that there are owners that do allow pets but do require deposits. But I think we need to find ways to open up more apartments in the city of Berkeley to allow pets. And so one of the things I put forward is a rather controversial idea a number of years ago. I think it was 2012 or 2013, was the idea of passing legislation to require that owners allow, under certain circumstances, and with a pet deposit, a tenant who has a pet, so that that is not a barrier to finding housing in the city of Berkeley. I was lambasted by the San Francisco Chronicle. It's a crazy idea. It was, taking away people's property rights. But I do think, and perhaps that might have not have been the best approach legislatively, but I do think it is still a valid issue. I can't tell you how many tenants that I encounter where it's a serious challenge to be able to find housing in the city of Berkeley. So I'm interested in actually revisiting this issue, but from the perspective of how we can create incentives to property owners to take tenants who have pets. And I think there are a number of things we can do. Obviously, many owners require deposits, additional deposits for any potential damage. That's always something that could be required at their discretion. But we have various taxes that we impose on property owners. We just increased a business license tax on rental property owners in the city of Berkeley. And so perhaps one approach could be reducing or waiving that increase if owners agree to take a tenant with a pet under certain conditions. There may be other incentives that we can put in place. So I'm very interested and would like to engage with your organization and the organizations that you represent in that conversation with property owners to see how we can find a win-win solution. Because I think we can find a way to address this issue. It's not an impossible issue to address. So I'm interested in exploring this from the perspective of how we can do this from an incentive-based way. And that's a good starting point. I think it literally opened a lot of doors to people in our city. In addition, there were a number of issues that we had moved forward during my time on the city council, which are still valid issues. One is the issue of primate guardianship and animal testing. And we have a number of R&D facilities in the city of Berkeley, particularly in West Berkeley, where there has been testing done on animals. We know the testing was done on the Berkeley campus. And so this is an issue. And as we are working to expand the research and development in West Berkeley particularly, we want to make sure that we have policies in place that discourage testing of animals in those facilities. So on the issue of primate guardianship, as we all know, Berkeley's been at the forefront of protecting the welfare of animals, from the banning of declawing of cats to opposing invasive scientific research of animals. And the proposed primate guardianship ordinance, which was proposed a number of years ago, I believe is consistent with the City of Berkeley's past positions and our commitment to the defense of animals. And specifically, it redefines the necessary care and housing requirements for special classes of primates and bars their use for entertainment, for invasive scientific research, or pet trade. And so this came to us from a number of animal rights groups, and we had put it forward, and we're still interested in having it be explored. And on the issue of testing, while we did pass a policy many decades ago prohibiting the use of Dre's testing on animals, I do believe that we should adopt an actual formal position on animal research, and specifically on whether we should allow it or not allow it in certain zoning districts in the city. Bayer, as we know, has conducted animal research, and it no longer does animal testing, but with new R&D opportunities in West Berkeley in the future, I think it's important that we look at the issue of animal testing and whether or not we want to allow it or not as a policy. In addition, I think there's a lot more that we can do in the area of, we have amazing organizations in the East Bay. I mean, I got my dog from East Bay SPCA. We have Berkeley SPCA. We have our Berkeley shelter. We have great organizations that are working to try to rescue as many animals as possible. But I think there's more the city can do, and I welcome your ideas to how we can increase the number of adoptions, whether it's through advertising, using city resources, whether it's maybe creative approaches that other cities are doing. How we can increase the number of adoptions, I think, is something that's really, really critical. And as we all know, or some of you know, Berkeley recently, thanks to the help of PETA, became another city to ban the sale of fur products. And we are now looking at other legislation that is actually coming to the City Council this Tuesday, tomorrow, to prohibit the gift of animals as prizes at carnivals or festivals. And to me, I think it makes complete sense. It's whether goldfish or rabbits or any form of animal. Animals are not disposable. They're living beings and need to be treated with the respect and dignity that they have. And so I support that ordinance, which will be coming to us, and welcome other ideas that people have about other ways that we can expand protections for animals in the city of Berkeley. So we've been doing a number of things. There are also best practices that we've looked to. Santa Monica, West Hollywood has also been at the forefront. We've looked to them in terms of their legislation. And so I think there's more that Berkeley can do. And one of my priorities as mayor is not just to make sure that we are treating every living being with the dignity and respect that they deserve, that we are addressing the issues of equity in our community, but that we also be at the cutting edge. I think Berkeley is a city of creative, innovative people. Many of you are Berkeley residents, and have been really at the forefront of animal rights advocacy and also many other social causes. And so it makes complete sense that we should really be at the forefront of advocacy for the rights and treatment of animals, and helping inspire other cities to take action as well. Now, especially when we have a hostile federal administration, I think Berkeley is not a big city, but it is a city with an enormous reputation and a history of really being at the cutting edge of social action. And so, as mayor, my priority is to make sure that we continue that historic legacy that Berkeley has really been founded upon, of really being at the forefront of progressive change and progressive action. And I think now more than ever, it's so important that cities really be at the forefront of leading on public policy. When we can't expect much from the national government, we need to act locally. We have to think globally and act locally. So that is my priority as the mayor of Berkeley, is how we can really be innovative, how we can address the issues facing our city, how we can be a model for other communities. And it's an enormous honor. It's been a challenging year, certainly, as Michael alluded to. But despite all the distraction and intensity of having outside groups come into our city and have protests and challenge our commitment to free speech, that hasn't distracted us from the real work that we have to do, which is to address a variety of issues: housing affordability, homelessness. I can't tell you how many people we see in our streets that have pets. And we need to attend to the needs of our unhoused residents and their pets as well. And related to that, we are actually voting tomorrow night at the Berkeley City Council on establishing our own navigation center, which is similar to what San Francisco has put in place. They have 3 now, which is a robust shelter that will allow pets. Many shelters do not allow pets, that will allow couples, and that will have on-site services. It will be a 24-hour facility. And we think that this model will be really effective to get people out of encampments into a much humane living environment where we can care for their animals, we can care for the people, we can bring Berkeley Humane in and other groups to provide services, vaccinations and other services, where we can provide housing navigation to get people housed. But that once again gets to the issue of, if you have a pet and your landlord won't take the pet, what do we do about that? So that's a whole other issue that we have to continue to address as well. But on the issue of homelessness, we see so many people on our streets. It is a crisis. It is a failure of our society. And we see oftentimes that they have companions, and that they're doing the best they can to care for those companions, but may not have the resources needed. And it really breaks my heart every single day to see that happen, and we need to do what we can to address those needs as well. So, so despite the challenges that we're facing as a city, Berkeley is still leading. And I believe part of our responsibility in terms of progressive action also involves the humane treatment of animals. So that's a responsibility I take very seriously, and I welcome your comments and your ideas. Thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you.